بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم أعيذ نفسي بالله العلي العظيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على مولانا محمد وعلى آله في كل لمحة ونفس عدد ما وسعه علمك آمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. God's peace, mercy, and blessings be on all of you. Welcome back. Happy New Year's.
Happy 19.
May this year be lighter and brighter than last year.
Amen.
Ameen. We are on the tafsir of Surah al-Maun. I'm going to recite it. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أرأيت الذي يكذب بالدين فذلك الذي يدع اليتيم ولا يحض على طعام المسكين فويل للمصلين الذين هم عن صلاتهم ساهون الذين هم يراءون ويمنعون الماعون صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك من الشاهدين. This surah, again, there's debate on whether it's a Meccan surah chapter or a Medinan surah. So some say Meccan, some say Medinan. Some will say that it's half and half. So half of it is Meccan, half is Medinan, which is very significant. As we mentioned last time, if it's Meccan, it implies a different thing, while if it's Medinan, it implies a totally different thing. Because the Meccan phase was a phase of persecution, trials, and the proper response was patience and tolerance and forbearing. While the Medinan phase was a phase of victory, prosperity, growth, and the proper response would be gratitude and humility in victory. And that's just generally speaking. There's much more to that. So the surah, again, this surah has 7 ayat, signs or verses. Some will say it's 6. They'll combine 2 of them. But generally it's known to have 7. And again, the surah begins with a question, a rhetorical question. Not a question to be answered, but God is saying, have you not seen? Ara'ayta. Right? It starts with that istifham, the alif hamza of istifham, the that we said, question mark, ra'ayta. And then ra'ayta is saying, have you not seen, past tense. Ara'ayta alladhi yukadhibu bid-din. So the ra'ayta, even though it's talking about vision here, it's using the sense of sight. Even like in Surah Al-Fil, it said alam tara, present tense and future tense. Did you not see? Because the idea was that it still applies in the future. The lesson here in Surah Al-Fil applies for the future. Here, though, it's a past tense. It's madi, ra'ayta. It's not tara. It's ra'ayta. Have you not seen? It's a past tense. And again, this is not, it is referring to, you can say a specific event, but it's not a historical event. This is just like a little incident that, the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims were aware of, which doesn't have like a historical significance in a bigger, historical context. So, and it's, but it's the past tense is used because for God, we mentioned because God is outside of time and space. God is outside of time and space. He has created time and He has created space. So time, which is past, present, and future, does not apply to God, since He's outside of it. And so when God speaks of future events, He'll use a past tense verb, because God is the author. And when God when God uses the future tense, even though it was a past event, the wisdom there is that this is still applicable in the future. History repeats itself, right? And it's going to be a vicious cycle repeating itself until you learn the lesson to break that cycle, and then history will repeat itself. It'll go to a different, a different way. Something new will come about. So, أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ. Have you not seen the one who يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ? The English translation in your source that you're using in Ma'arif al-Quran is, have you seen him or her who denies the requital. Okay, the requital. So, and then the second verse, so he is the same one who pushes away the orphan. And then the third verse, and does not persuade others to feed the needy. And then, so woe to those performers of salah, of namaz, of prayer, right? The ritual, canonical prayer, not, supplication, dua, who are neglectful of their salah. So woe to those performers of salah who are neglectful of their salah, of their canonical prayer, the 5 prescribed daily prayers. Who do good, like praying, for instance, and also other good. The implication here is general. Who do good only to show off, the show off, and refuse to give even small gifts. Ma'un. The name of the surah Ma'un is here translated as small gifts. Okay, that's the translation according to the source that you're using for the class, that Imam Kashif was using. So I'm just going to go a little bit deeper using another tafsir that's a traditional and very fundamental tafsir of Jalalain.
We're just having a short conversation, not to interrupt you. Right before class, I just want to mention this now before I forget. But if there's any way you can email me the different tafsirs you're referring to, because then that way people can pick up those books or those references.
Okay, yeah.
Or some of them. It doesn't have to be all, but some of them are more popular, whatever.
I could do that, yeah. Okay. It's just that the thing is that most of the ones that I'm using are not available in your language.
Oh, they're Arabic?
Yeah.
Okay.
In your language. Thank you very much.
In English.
Okay. Right. Okay. So, anything that's in English.
But I think Ibn Kathir is available in English. But I do have to make a remark about that. The Ibn Kathir English translation is horrible, according to my opinion, because it doesn't translate all of it. I think it's summarized. They pick and choose. They don't translate everything from Ibn Kathir. So a lot of the people like Masjid al-Nur and the ones of that, they like using Ibn Kathir. There's a lot of people who are just like Ibn Kathir tafsir, but then the English translation of the Ibn Kathir that they use, because most people can't read Arabic and they don't understand it, and so the ones that they're using, it's pick and choose, and they haven't translated everything in Ibn Kathir. So when I go to the Ibn Kathir, the real Ibn Kathir, and I read it, I'm like, whoa, there's like paragraphs and so many context and stories and information left out. So, that's questionable. Why they do that. But you can use it, the English. That would be the only one. That would be the Ibn Kathir. And then there's a few shorter ones that I'll email out to you, like the Jalalain. They've translated into English, but it's a very concise tafsir. Okay? It's not more than a volume. But like Ibn Kathir, it's like what, 9-10 volumes. And then there's Qurtubi, which is again like a 9-10 volume. And then there's Razi, which is 11 volumes, 20 volumes. And then there's Tabari, which is like 20 volumes. And there are several other ones, and each one has a certain quality to it. So I try to use as many as I can. For this particular surah, I didn't prepare much. I just used your source, and I used an outside source, Jalalain. Okay. But I think it's enough for the amount of time that I have to speak and for what I'm going to cover, because there's an important concept in the surah that I'm going to talk about. So, the surah says, أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ. So the word here that might throw people off is, أَرَأَيْتَ, we said, have you not seen? الَّذِي, the one who. الَّذِي is a ism al-mawsula. It would be, it is called, what is it called? It's a conjunction, I think, in English. Ism al-mawsula. أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي, have you not seen the one who, الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ. Okay, the root of this word يُكَذِّبُ is from kidhb. Kidhb in Arabic means lie, to lie, like lying. Speak an untruth, telling a lie, covering the truth. Kidb. But this is in the second form. It's not saying yakdhibu. It's not saying, have you seen the one who lies about religion? That's not what this is saying. This is saying, أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ. So this is in the second form, which makes it more intensive, okay? And it changes the agent, the causative agent. So it's saying, not the one who lies as an intransitive verb. In English we would say intransitive verb. But the one who, it makes the verb transitive, from intransitive to transitive. Which means that the verb now requires an object. Okay, that's what it means in English grammar, when you have a transitive verb and an intransitive verb. Intransitive verb in English grammar, and in Arabic it's called fi'l lazim. Fi'l lazim. It means a verb that does not require an object in a sentence. So it stands on its own. He lied. It's enough information. Okay, right? That's enough. I mean, you could ask for more details like what and all that, but he lied is a complete sentence. But you can't say, like, for instance, he hit. Right? In English, I don't know if would that be a complete sentence or not. He hit.
Hit what?
He hit what? Right? The question is what? Like, you have to have an object. So that's called a transitive verb. Okay, that's called transitive, which is fi'l muta'addi in Arabic. So here it took the word kidhib, right? Yakdhibu, you know, kadiba yakdhibu, kadaba yakdhibu. He lied, he lies, and it made it transitive. So the verb here is yukadhibu. Yukadhibu means to give the lie to. Not you're lying, but you're causing a lie. Okay? I'm giving you hints right now. What would be the proper English word to translate this? You're causing someone else to lie. You're giving the lie to. You're not lying, but you're giving the lie to. In other words, you are denying. You're rejecting something. Because you're casting a lie. You're saying that that's not true. That thing is not true. So that's how the meanings derive. Okay? أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ. What is he giving the lie to? What is he denying? بِالدِّينِ. Now, this is the word that in the verse maybe most people will misunderstand, because almost every Muslim, even if they don't know Arabic, they know what deen means. Right? We have it in Surah al-Kafirun, which is coming up, one of the common surahs that are memorized, and everybody knows deen, deen al-Islam. What is your deen? Religion. That's translated as religion, way of life, a life transaction. But here, deen in this context does not mean religion. Okay? This is very important. In this context, deen here means the same deen that when you recite Surah Al-Fatiha, the very first surah of the Quran that you recite in every single one of your prayers, right? Which is Maliki Yawmiddin, right? The owner, the possessor of the day of religion? No, not the day of religion. The owner, the possessor of the day of judgment, right? So it could be translated as requital. It could be translated as requital, also as recompense. Okay, recompense, many different ways. But in Arabic, deen basically here means jaza. Jaza is, you know, when you say jazakallahu khair, people say Jack now, J-A-K. I hate that. I'm sorry, that's a pet peeve of mine. But when they do the acronyms, but they say jazakallahu khaira, they're saying jazakallah. They're saying may Allah give you the jaza. May Allah recompense you. But with what? Because jaza doesn't necessarily imply it's good. Right? May Allah recompense you. Like, in other words, you know, do back to you what you did unto me. But what? Khayra. We add jazakallahu khayra. May Allah recompense you with khayr, with good, with goodness. So reward you. Right? But it could also be, what if somebody said jazakallahu sharra? The opposite of khayr. May Allah reward you, not reward you, but, you know, recompense you with evil. So that's like a curse. It's an imprecation. You're dooming the person. So, you know, it's important to put khaira, but generally, you know, when you say jazakallah, jazakallah, people just say quick, they don't say khaira. It's implied that they mean good. Okay? But jaza can go either way, just for your information. So deen here means jaza. It means recompense, requital, judgment. And also it means hisab. So it means jaza and hisab. Hisab means accountability. So have you not seen the one who denies, who gives the lie to, the recompense, the judgment, the requital, and accountability, that he or she is going to be judged. He or she is going to be recompensed with whatever good or bad that they do, whatever decisions they make in this life that affects themselves and other people around them in their environment, even inanimate objects. They will be recompensed with good or evil. They will be judged and they will be taken to account. There's accountability. Just like we have accountability in our worldly concept when we go to work and employment, or accountability with our family members, you know, there's conditional love. There's accountability in the spiritual realm, in the ultimate destiny, the next realm. فَذَلِكَ الَّذِي يَدُعُّ الْيَتِيمِ. فَذَلِكَ الَّذِي يَدُعُّ الْيَتِيمِ. The ذَلِكَ here, that comes after the fa, means that in Arabic usually. It's the ismul ishara. It's the demonstrative pronoun. Okay? That. When you're pointing to something that's further away as opposed to this, which is something closer. Okay? فَذَلِكَ ذَلِكَ here actually means, in context in the tafsir, it means huwa. So it's the pronoun, it's a dhamir. The pronoun he or she or it. So فَذَلِكَ is really فَهُوَ. So he is the one who, الَّذِي, again, اسم الموصولة. He is the one who يَدُعُّ الْيَتِيمِ. Yadu'u is the key term here to understand. What does it mean? Because yatim is known. Yatim has a clear meaning in Arabic. It means orphan, the orphan. An orphan is someone who is, grew up without a father or without a mother or without both. Right? An orphan, al-yatim. And we know that the Prophet ﷺ was a yatim. That was one of his qualities and characteristics. That's what defined it. So he is the one who's the one who? The person who gives the lie to judgment, to recompense, to requital, to accountability. That is the one who, what does he do? He does yadu'u al-yatim. He does something to the orphan. What does he do? Yadu'u means yadfa'u, in Arabic and Jalalain it says yadfa'uhu bi'unfin an haqqihi. That he yadfa'u, he repels him, drives him away, right? Pushes him back, pushes him away, drives him away, right? Bi'unfin, with harshness, with severity, with sternness, with violence, with force, okay? Without like any mercy, compassion, love, kindness, or anything like that. And it's very like public, you can see it, So he pushes, repels, drives the orphan away with harshness, in regard to something that is the orphan's right. So disregarding this person's right, disregarding their civil right, disregarding their familial right, disregarding their human right. Okay? That's what it means, yadu'u, when you do that. So this person does this to the yatim, to the orphan. Okay? Takes away the rights, oppresses them, transgresses against them, is unjust, unethical, all of that. وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. And now it's continuing to talk about this person, right, that denies the judgment, the accountability. وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. And he لَا يَحُضُّ. And he does not. يَحُضُّ here means in Arabic, حَضَّ يَحُضُّ حَضًّا. It means to incite, to prod, to prompt, to goad, right, to provoke, to instigate. Has kind of negative connotations, but it's kind of like, when you prick something, you poke something to move it on, to spur on. But here in the context it means like to motivate, encourage, okay, with that sense. وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. And he does not encourage or motivate, or as in the translation here, persuade, عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ, upon the food of the miskin, the needy, the poor one, the faqir, right? And ta'am here, even though ta'am in Arabic means food, you use ta'am for food. Are we having a ta'am today, food? Is there a ta'am at this event? Is there food? But here, ta'am means it'am in the context, in the tafsir. It'am means feeding, not food, but feeding. So he is the one who does not encourage, motivate, persuade, feeding, right, the poor, feeding the needy, feeding the homeless. Okay, very important, very relevant. وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. So people who don't do this, people who don't feed people, needy people, poor people, homeless people, these are people usually, if you sit down with them and question them, unless they're just heedless or forgetful, or they're just in their own world, self-centered, they're usually people who, they don't believe in an afterlife. They don't believe in being accountable. Like, so what? If I don't feed that, he should have watched out for himself. That's why he's in the situation that he's in or she's in. Why do I have to pay? I'm working hard. I'm making money. This, that. Right. So there, you have to question yourself and others too about, do you believe in spiritual recompense? Do you believe in karma? Like we say, karma, what goes around comes around, from the Hindu and Buddhist concept. But karma is interesting because we have that idea too. maybe not quite the same as they believe, but we have that understanding of karma. وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ. Wail is commonly used in the Quran. Wail means like woe upon. Like, you're saying, you're kind of, it's a negative thing, right? Woe upon, like, it's like a curse, a damnation. Like, it's not just an expression, a figurative expression where you just say it. It actually has an effect. So when God is saying woe upon them, it does have an effect, on these people. فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ. But who? لِلْمُصَلِّينَ. God is saying woe upon the al-musallin, the people who do salah. Right? So woe to those performers of salah. Woe upon the people who pray. The people who pray. The people who perform the canonical prayer, the ritual prayer, the 5 daily prescribed prayers. Woe upon them. Whoa, wait a minute now. This is really confusing. Right? These are the good people. Aren't they the good people? The Muslims, isn't this what we're required to do? Why would God say woe upon? This is one verse. فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ. Which is there's a deep concept right here, if you think about that. Right? It's the idea that definitely some people can. Let me cover the first wrong idea that can come out of this. The wrong idea that can come out of this for some modern Muslims or modernist Muslims, progressive Muslims, even though it's good to be progressive in a sense, but to be progressive, part of the progressive movement is a different thing. Okay? So progressive or modernist Muslims will be like, yeah, so if God is saying woe upon the people who pray, then this can imply right here, we can interpret the Quran right here, we can interpret it ourselves to mean that prayer is not obligatory. Because you can do it or not, but it depends upon your heart, your internal, and this, that. They can invalidate the obligatory nature, the ritual nature, the prescribed nature of the prayer, and saying that that's not what it's about. That's the wrong understanding to derive from the verse, because there's nothing like that you can derive from here. That's just coming out of your own whim. Right? You're going really far out there. This is not poetry. Okay, this is not English literature or some thing that your teacher will say, yeah, okay, that's your opinion. Oh, that's your opinion. Go ahead, write your essay now. Prove it. No, you can't do that with this. So what is it saying here? The verses afterwards will clarify a bit. But the other idea is, فَوَيْلُ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ. God is saying, woe upon the people who pray. It's also, at the same time, the other wrong idea that it is invalidating is the idea that's in the heads of many supposedly good people. Right? Religious people, people who are doing the prayer, and they're on top of it. It's invalidating something there. That's not what it's all about either. So it's saying that people who say that, oh, see, woe upon the people who pray. It's not about that. It's about feeding the poor and just your heart being clean, and you don't have to pray. It's not, if you miss a prayer, it's not a big deal. It's not a sin. No. That's an extreme. And then the other extreme is people who pray 5 times a day and everything, and they go about criticizing people, and they make it a point that I pray and this, that, and it's all about this form of prayer, right? God is saying, woe upon the prayer. So, whoa, there's something else going on here. There's a middle ground here. These are two extremes. الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. الَّذِينَ, the ones who, right? هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ. Sahun here means, in the tafsir, it means غافلون. Ghafla comes from the term ghafla. Ghafla is a key concept in this religion of Islam and in the Quran and in the Sunnah. Ghafla means heedlessness. You have to know this. Okay, I would write it down, memorize it, know this. Ghafla. Ghaflat. Right? Ghaflatun. Ghafla is heedlessness. Heedlessness kind of means like forgetfulness, but it's not the same as being forgetful, because forgetfulness can be excused. Heedlessness is a different type of forgetfulness. It's a forgetfulness that is not excused. It's a spiritual forgetfulness. You're guilty for being heedless. Heedlessness is not a good thing. It's a negative thing. Forgetfulness, it's human. It's human nature. So when you're heedless is when you're not paying attention. Not just when you're not paying attention. You're distracted, but it's also when you don't have it, you don't value something enough to pay attention to it. You don't value it enough, that's why you forget it. It's because it's not in your list of priorities. That's why you forget it. Okay? That's why it leaves your mind. That's why you are heedless of it. You're forgetful of it. That's what it implies here. And ghafla is, according to many of our spiritual psychologists, the experts in Islamic psychology, ghafla is the root disease of the psyche, of the soul. It's the root disease of the heart, from which all other diseases spring forth, like arrogance, envy, vanity, conceit, love of the world, materialism, lust, wrath, violence, all these things. It comes from ghafla. Okay, that's what some of our great psychologists have mentioned. That ghafla is the problem. It's the key problem. It's the key component. And what is the opposite of ghafla in Islam? The opposite of ghafla in our religion is dhikr. It is dhikr. And dhikr means remembrance. Right? Remembrance. And you can also say hudur. Hudur means presence. Presence. It's the opposite of ghafla. Dhikr is hudur, in essence. When you're in a state of remembrance, you remember, you have recollection, you are present. And that's the opposite of ghafla, of heedlessness. And everything is dhikr. Every act of worship is dhikr. The purpose of it is dhikr, including the greatest act of worship after the shahada, after declaring and witnessing to faith and truth in your heart and on your tongue and publicizing it. After you have become a Muslim, the greatest pillar is what? Prayer, salah, the 5 daily prayers. And that is imaduddin, the Prophet said in a hadith. It's the central pillar of the 5 pillars that holds up this structure, this building of Islam. Right? It's the central pillar, the 5 daily prayers. Whoever doesn't have the 5 daily prayers, it's mentioned in many Sahih hadith, they don't have deen. There's no wall between it and disbelief and shirk and polytheism. And one of our great scholars of the 4 schools of thought, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, he considered people outside of Islam, that they're kafir, they've apostatized, who don't keep up their 5 daily prayers. Especially not in neglect, but in rejection, that it's not obligatory upon me. Okay? Actually, all the scholars consider that person a non-believer who has rejection of it in their heart. But that particular scholar had it also if you neglect it. If you don't pray your 5 daily prayers, you're a kafir. Okay? And he's one of our accepted scholars, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, rahimahullah. So, and Allah says in the Quran, right? Establish the prayer, establish the salah, aqim as-salah li dhikri. Right? He says, establish the prayer for what? For paradise? That's a side effect. Many people don't understand. They think you have to pray so you can go to Jannah, paradise. Who said that? That's not the purpose of prayer. Many Muslims, this is how they understand it. That's incorrect. That's completely wrong. Paradise is a side effect. It's God giving you a reward. He doesn't have to give it to you. To be safe from hellfire, I have to pray so to be safe from hell. That's a side effect. That's a side. Those are accidents. These are accidentals. The purpose of prayer is aqim as-salah li dhikri. Establish the prayer for my remembrance. Li dhikri, my remembrance. God's remembrance. Presence, meditation, presence of mind, reflection. That's the reason of prayer. Okay? And likewise with every other thing that you do in this religion. And in any true religion. Because all true religions were Islam. And they got corrupted into isms. And then came Mohammedanism, the last religion, which is what the Europeans called our religion in the medieval ages. Mohammedanism, another ism. Just like the other isms. Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Zoroastrianism, and Taoism. Just goes on. But no, al-Islam. This is just Islam. It's just a succession of Islam. So, woe upon the people who pray, الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَاهُونَ or غَافِلُونَ, right? The ones who are of their prayer, it says here, who are neglectful of their salah, but it means the ones who are heedless of their salah. They're heedless inside of their salah, when you're praying, what are you doing? You're just doing the outward forms. Right? So this is again what I was saying earlier about the people who say, well, we pray 5 times a day and they're on top of it and they're perfect in their prayer. And I'm not just talking about people who do that. I'm talking about people who even know the rulings. They know the fiqh of salah. They know their fiqh really well. Like, what's obligatory in the prayer, what's sunnah in the prayer, what's mustahab, recommended in the prayer, what's mubah or jaiz, what's permissible in the prayer, what's mandub, mustahab, recommended, what's makruh in the prayer, disliked, what's haram in the prayer, prohibited, what's a fasid, what invalidates the prayer, makes it fasid, a mufsid, right? So they know all the rulings of the prayer too, and they're doing it very correctly, because a lot of people are just praying the outward prayers, but they don't even know the fiqh, they're praying wrong. So it's not even an accepted prayer according to the outward standards that you have to follow. Because it's a prescribed prayer. This is not just a prayer of your heart. You raise up your hands and you make dua. Because that's in essence what salah means. Salah is also dua. It's a supplication to God. It's a prayer. But that's like, our fellow co-religionist Christians will say, we pray, but then there's no prescription, there's no form. They have the canon, right? There's no ritual, there's no prescribed form to it. We have that too, that informal prayer. You can do it any time of the day, in any condition you're in. That's a different type of prayer. This is a prescribed prayer, what Jesus performed in the Gospels, where he threw down his head on the ground in the middle of the night and made sajda, and he prostrated, and then in prostration he said, "Oh Allah, save me from this thing that's about to come down, this cup, relieve me of this cup of death that they were planning and plotting against them." Right? So he performed those movements and those postures of canonical prayer. So I'm talking about, so these people who know the fiqh and they're doing their prayer, but they're heedless in it. Their mind is somewhere else. Their heart is somewhere else. Their thinking is not with God. Their feeling is not with God. Right? But they have it all tight and perfect and everything. So it means those people, and it also means people who يُؤَخِّرُونَهَا عَنْ وَقْتِهَا, it says in the tafsir, that they delay it beyond its prescribed time limit. So those are also people who are heedless, right? The prayer comes in and they're not aware the dhuhr is in. The adhan is here. And it goes, and they're still heedless. Goes until it's expired. And the next prayer comes in. So they've just missed the prayer. That's also heedlessness. That's people who didn't value it. Their priorities weren't straight. Okay? So Allah is criticizing. God is blaming. He's pointing this out about people who pray. Woe upon the people who pray, who are they are heedless of their prayer. Right? An salatihim sahun. And this is also important, the preposition an. I just want to point that out. The preposition an. Because a lot of people, they translate this wrong. They'll translate it with a different preposition. But it's saying an. It's not saying the alladhina hum, min salatihim or fi salatihim, for instance. Like I said, it has the connotation of being in your prayer heedless. While you're praying, you're not present in your prayer. I added that, right? That's an addition. But the main thing is an salatihim, meaning that they don't even pray. That it goes beyond its prescribed time. That's the real meaning here. Okay, it's not talking about fi salatihim, because then again you get these spiritual type of liberal, progressive, modernist type of Muslims who say, see, you're not even contemplative and meditating during prayer, so you don't have no prayer, so don't even pray. There's no need to pray. No, this is not saying fi salatihim. It's not saying fi in their prayer. It's saying an salatihim. Of their prayer, they're heedless. In other words, they don't even pray. So you still have to pray even if you're not present in it. Okay? That part needs to be understood. But I added that addition, that it can also be, you can add that into your understanding. That just like you're heedless of your prayer, you should also not be heedless in the prayer. Okay? Important. The an salatihim as opposed to fi salatihim. There's no fi salatihim. It's an salatihim. It's an important point of grammar. Alladhina hum yura'un. And here we go. Here is the another big huge concept. What time do we have? Okay, I better hurry up. Alladhina hum yura'un. The ones who yura'un. right? They do good or they pray only to show off, right? They're pretentious. It's a pretense. It's fake. If they're showing off to other people, they're doing it for show, for other people to say that, wow, look at them, they're praying, or they pray really nice. You know, so this is yura'un comes from to be seen. To be seen. It has to do with the sense of sight. And it comes from the disease of the heart. This is one of the diseases of the heart and the study of Islamic psychology, which is its own field and branch. It's called riya. You should know this. Riya. I would recommend you write it down. Riya is one of the major diseases of the spiritual heart, of the psyche. Okay, there needs to be purification of this. Riya means, you can translate it as ostentation. Ostentation or pretension, or in common language, show off. Okay, that's riya. And God is talking about this. So God is talking about spiritual principles here, right? For those people that are saying it's about the spirit of things. Yes, it's true, but not in denial of the outward form. الَّذِينَ هُمْ يُرَاءُونَ They only do their prayer to show off, to pretend that they're praying. They look like they're praying. And then it says وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَعُونَ I'll get to that real quick. So riya is very important. Riya is it's considered by many to be one of the 5 diseases of the heart. You have hasad, which is envy. Okay? Then you have kibr, or takabbur, which is arrogance. These are like the deadly sins in Christianity, okay? And then you have like hubbud dunya, love of the world, materialism. And then you have kasal, sloth, laziness, spiritual lassitude. And then you have like procrastination. And then you have riya. Riya is ostentation. When you're doing your good deeds and actions for other people, for the creation, you're not doing it for God. Okay? And this is where, this is a big problem in the Muslim community and amongst every religious community. Anyone who's religious, they have this problem. Because look, religion is about spirituality ultimately. It's not about materialism, material things. In the material world, you have to do things kind of to show it to other people so that you get an achievement, an accomplishment, a reward. That's how it works in the world. That's how you move up, you get promoted, and that's how people recognize you. But in spirituality, it's all for God. So you better be doing it for God. And if you're doing it for the same reasons as you're doing your worldly things, then it's a problem because you're bankrupt. You're going to be bankrupt spiritually. You wasted your time. I mean, what's the point of being in your room and you're just going up and down and doing these movements if they don't have meaning? Because they're just random. And you don't know the deep philosophical truth of the prophets of why it is the way to be, right? Or you're repeating a certain word over and over again. What's the benefit of that? It's a waste of time. Yeah, I mean, you can say now in psychology we have studies that it affects the brain and the neurons and all that. That's great if you know that. Many people don't even know that. But otherwise it would be a waste of time if you don't believe in God and you don't believe in deen, judgment, not religion, right? And requital. So riya is ostentation, pretension, or hypocrisy, you can say. It's a major disease of the heart. It's a key quality of what in Western psychology they call narcissism. You know, people who are narcissistic, there's 4 types of narcissistic personalities. It's a trait that people have. It's a big problem in society today because lots of people are narcissistic. And it's also in our psychology, it's known as shirk khafi. It's a type of shirk because you're associating partners with God. Shirk is the unforgivable sin, polytheism. So you're associating other people with God, like they're also a co-God with God, because you're doing it for them, you're not doing it for God. So it's like a hidden shirk, shirk khafi. And the Prophet described it in a hadith saying, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that this type of shirk it's not like the major shirk where you become kafir. You're still Muslim when you have this disease of the heart, but it's very subtle. It's very nuanced and subtle and hidden. It's very hidden to the point that it's like he described it as a black ant on a dark rock on a dark moonless night. Right? And it's in your consciousness, in your mind, and you're not aware of it. So you might be consciously doing it, and you might be just doing it out of rote, automatic pilot, and you're just showing off for your people. You haven't realized that, wait a minute, am I doing this for God? And even one of my teachers, he pointed out that you could even be doing it in your privacy. Right? You're doing it for yourself, like for your nafs, for your ego. And you're not doing it for God. You're doing it for your ego, to boost your ego. So, because your ego is also part of the creation, right? So this is an important thing. And then Allah says, the last thing He says is where the name of the surah is mentioned here, Ma'un. He says, وَيَمْنَعُونَ الْمَاعُونَ. Yamna' means to prohibit, to prevent, right? To refuse. Ma'un is translated as small gifts, but really Ma'un, that translation I don't think is quite correct. Ma'un means household utensils and tools. Household utensils and tools. So Ma'un are, things that everybody needs and uses. Common things that human beings use. So in a community, if you have a real community, right, these are things that are shared. It's not capitalism here. It has to be socialism here. Communism or whatnot. But it has to be where it's shared. These are small items. They're not big items that you have to have private ownership or property. And it might belong to you, sure, but somebody will knock on your door and say, hey, can I borrow a qas'a, which is like a large wooden bowl, or a kettle, a tea kettle. Can I borrow your screwdriver? Or can I borrow your do you have a nail or something that I can use? So these are the things that are mentioned in the tafsir. It's like a nail, a cooking pot, a bowl, a hatchet, which is like a small axe. So tools and utensils. So you say no to the person, and they're asking for that. So it's not a ma'un, so it's not a person who's a beggar or really poor or needy. It could be your neighbor. They might have everything, but they just, can I have some sugar? Maybe you can even add that in there. Sure.
It's, in a tribal society, that would really, really be a bad thing.
Yeah.
I mean, today, if you don't talk to your neighbors or anybody else, well, that's just kind of normal. But in a tribal society, if you're not willing to share what you had, they might die. And if you needed something from them, they don't share with you, then you might.
Exactly.
I mean, that would just be, that could destroy a family, could destroy a tribe or a
Very
clan.
Good point. Very good point. Yes.
Wow, that would just be, that'd just be horrible. I mean, if it's just, that was kind of mundane almost things, but the impact could really be hurtful, devastating
destroy the whole
to a family that was in need of a pot or something to hold up their roof. I don't know.
Yeah. And some scholars in the other tafsirs I've read before, they've mentioned that ma'un can also imply like a little bit of money or something that's equivalent to these things, So some charity, some zakat, maybe some sadaqah. So it can also include meanings of that sort as well. So, somebody is like, can I get like 50 cents, a quarter or something? You're like, no. And you have it. So that's the person who's not refusing to give this help, this assistance, this benefit. And that's pretty much the basic, very rudimentary meanings of this surah. And Allahu A'lam, there's much more. We could talk about this at length. I could have gone into the other tafsirs and brought much more information, but that will suffice. And I think the most important concept, like I said, is the concept of riyah in here, of ostentation, this disease of the heart, that we need to get ourselves rid of it and heal ourselves from it, which comes from ghafla, ultimately, heedlessness. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.